All right, this is going to be part 3 of Much Ado About Nothing. I'm starting on page 42. The day of the wedding dawned bright and clear. Everyone was happy and bustling with good cheer. Margaret and Beatrice were admiring Hero's gown when Ursula rushed in, her face twisted with a frown. "I hope you know it's getting late and Claudio's inside. He comes with his friends to fetch the waiting bride." In the next room, Hero's father was busy too, when Dogberry and his partner arrived for an interview. They came to inform him of 2 villains they'd arrested, but chattered on so long that Leonato protested. "I am now in great haste. You said you would be brief. Examine them yourselves." Then he fled in relief. As the hour drew near, the townsfolk gathered in delight. Hero looked radiant. What a beautiful sight. Her dress was magnificent. Everyone was impressed. They sighed with pleasure at this union to be blessed. "Come, Friar Francis," said Leonato, looking proud. "Begin the ceremony," and he smiled at the crowd. This was a precious moment in his daughter's life. Very soon the 2 would be husband and wife. The friar asked Claudio, "Do you agree? Have you come, my lord, to marry this lady?" Hero trembled with excitement. Her eyes were aglow. Claudio stared at her and firmly answered, "No." Hero gasped in horror and began to shake. Leonato cried, "Friar, there must be some mistake. Claudio is playing with the words that you spoke." But Hero's father wondered if it really was a joke. The priest continued, though he too was aghast. "Hero, do you take Claudio for your husband?" he asked. "I do," Hero promised, her voice loud and clear. Claudio turned to her father with an angry sneer. "Will you, with free and unconstrained soul, give me this maid?" "As freely, son, as God did give her me," he conveyed. "Then take her back again," Claudio fumed. He pushed Hero away. "Our wedding is doomed." "Her blush is guiltiness, not modesty," he roared. Leonato was dazed. "What do you mean, my lord?" "This looks not like a nuptial," Benedict said. "What's wrong with you, Claudio?" Hero cried in dread. What man was he last night at your window?" he retorted. "Between 12 and 1 with whom you consorted." "I talked with no man at that hour," Hero implored. Don Pedro interrupted. "That's a lie," he roared. "At your chamber window in the moonlight I heard you speak words of love to a man last night." Claudio cried, "Hero, most foul, most farewell." His cruel words to her sounded like a death knell. Hero tried to speak, but could not make a sound. She staggered, then slumped upon the ground. Claudio gazed at her, but had no sympathy, then left with Don Pedro. So angry was he. Beatrice rushed to her dear cousin's side. "Hero is dead, I think," she mournfully cried. "Help, uncle," she wailed. "This is so unjust." In her cousin's honor she had never lost trust. But Hero's father believed the evidence and would not speak in his daughter's defense. Leonato raged, "Hero is to blame. Death is the fairest cover for her shame. Do not live, Hero." His fury intensified. "On my soul," moaned Beatrice, "my cousin is belied." But Hero's eyelids flickered, and life was restored. "Have comfort, lady," Friar Francis implored. Hero vowed, "Friar, if any man with me conversed, then refuse me, hate me, let me be cursed." For a time the friar had been observing the accused. "Leonato, hear me. Your daughter's been misused. This sweet and gentle lady is innocent. Your grace, pause a while, and let my counsel sway you in this case. I have a plan that will in due course on Hero's behalf change slander to remorse. Let it be known through Messina that Hero has died, and that Claudio's accusations killed his bride. On her family's tomb hang a mournful epitaph, stage a mock burial, and grieve on her behalf. In life we value more what we can't possess. Claudio will be sorry and feel great distress. In the end," the friar smiled, "I have no doubt Hero's name will be cleared and the truth will out." Then he turned to Hero. "Endure and patience give." He held out his hand. "Come, lady, die to live." As the friar led Leonato and Hero away, Beatrice and Benedict were left alone that day. Benedict was gentle with the lady for whom he longed. "Surely I do believe your fair cousin is wronged." Beatrice was weeping. "Hero speaks the truth. How much I would owe to the man who offers proof." Benedict drew closer to the lady he admired. "Is there any way to show such friendship?" he inquired. "For I do love nothing in the world as well as you. Beatrice, by my sword, I believe you love me too." And though it took some prodding, Beatrice finally confessed. "I love you with so much of my heart that none is left to protest." Benedict smiled. "I'd do anything you commanded." Kill Claudio, Beatrice firmly demanded. Not for the whole world, he bellowed, astounded. You kill me to deny it. Claudio's proof is unfounded. Sweet hero, she is wronged, she is slandered, she's undone. Benedict tried to stop her as she turned to run. Enough, exclaimed Benedict, his face looking grim. I am engaged, he cried. I will challenge him. Now throughout Messina, the sad news quickly spread that Leonato's daughter, the Lady Hero, was dead. In the city's jail, the hour was getting late as Borachio and Conrad awaited their fate. For the interview by Dogberry seemed to take all day. The town clerk interrupted, wanting to have his say. Master Constable, let's get to the offense. Call forth the watch to present the evidence. And so the sordid details were finally related. The clerk, who was recording them, became agitated. Let these men be bound and brought to Leonato's palace. The governor must be informed. This is a disgrace. Meanwhile, Signor Leonato ached with grief. Nothing could bring him comfort and relief. The friar had convinced him Hero was not to blame, but now her stricken father was filled with shame. Just then Don Pedro and Claudio drew nigh. The old man raised his sword with a battle cry. Thou hast so wronged mine innocent child and me, I am forced to ignore my age and challenge thee. Then Antonio, his brother, jumped into the fray. God knows I loved my niece, and you shall pay. Away, shouted Claudio, his honor offended. The prince added, let this argument be ended. As Leonato and Antonio withdrew, Signor Benedict strode quickly into view. Don Pedro joked. You almost parted a fight. With two old men, it would have been quite a sight. Benedict's face took on a sickly pallor. In a false quarrel there is no true valor. You have, among you, an innocent life shed, and your brother Don John from Messina has fled. Claudio, our dispute is long overdue. You are a villain, and I challenge you. Meet me when you dare. Then he stormed away. He is in earnest, cried Don Pedro in dismay. At that moment, a parade of men drew near. Why two were in chains was not at first clear. Don Pedro was stunned. This makes no sense. My brother's men bound? What's their offense? Constable Dogberry replied in a manner grand, but as usual his explanation was hard to understand, so the prince appealed to Borachio instead. But what he had to say filled Don Pedro with dread. Borachio was contrite and answered on bended knee, Sweet prince, listen, and let this count kill me. It was Margaret at the window, Borachio cried. It was a shameful trick. Fair Hero never lied. Then he admitted everything to the last detail. The lady is dead upon mine and my master's betrayal. Claudio shuddered, and his heart began to race. A look of horror spread across Don Pedro's face. The words of the confession rushed upon him like a flood. Claudio, runs not this speech like iron through your blood? It is as though I drank poison while he spoke, he replied. And for the first time, Claudio saw the error of his pride. To his sweet hero he'd been so heartless and unjust. His ego and his honor had overwhelmed his trust. Leonato and his brother returned into view. The town clerk had revealed the facts, now proven true. Hero's father demanded, Which is the one I despise? Come now, he shouted angrily. Let me see his eyes. Borachio was repentant. I do not disagree. If you would know your wronger, look on me. Leonato charged. You killed my innocent child. Yes, I alone, Borachio cried. I should be reviled. No, not so, villain, Leonato exclaimed. Claudio and Don Pedro also must be blamed. I will thank you all until my final breath. You are responsible for my daughter's death. Claudio cried, Choose your revenge for my cure. Whatever penance you decide, I will endure. Don Pedro exclaimed, Accept my guilt too. By my soul, how can I make amends to you? Proclaim my daughter's innocence, Leonato replied. Let the people know the truth of how she died. Hang her an epitaph upon her tomb tonight, and pay your respects at the burial site. Tomorrow morning at my house direct your feet. The daughter of my brother I want you to meet. She is almost the copy of my dead child. Marry her, Claudio, and I'll be reconciled. Claudio vowed, To your merciful offer I agree. Your overkindness doth wring tears from me. And so that evening, on Hero's behalf, Claudio delivered a touching epitaph. Then he hung the scroll and bid her good night, promising yearly to repeat this rite. The hours passed as hymns were played and tears were shed for their hero betrayed. Don Pedro sighed, Look, the gentle day dapples the drowsy east with spots of gray. Come, Claudio, we must make a fresh start. At Leonato's home we must depart. Meanwhile, Leonato's joy could not be denied, and his daughter once again filled him with pride. Antonio smiled. It all worked out so fine. Then Leonato shared the last of his design. My dear daughter, and you gentlewomen all, withdraw and return veiled when I call. As the ladies departed, he continued to advise. Antonio, you will present my hero in disguise. He'll believe it is your daughter, he added with a grin. Everything is ready. Within the hour, we'll begin, Benedick interrupted. But I need a helping hand to bind me or undo me. Do you understand? Leonato asked. And what is your desire? To marry Beatrice, he replied, the lady I admire. My heart is with your liking, Leonato agreed. The friar nodded. A double wedding will proceed. Then Claudio arrived with Don Pedro by his side. Leonato looked serious and dignified. He inquired of the count, Are you resolved to wed? My will is absolute, Claudio promptly said. It was then that the ladies appeared on cue, behind veils, their faces hidden from view. Claudio wondered, which one's to be my bride? It will be my daughter, Antonio replied. Then Hero stepped forward in her disguise. A questioning look was in her eyes. Please, let me see your face, Claudio pleaded. No, not yet, Leonato quickly interceded. Then you shall not till you take her hand, and promise to marry her as we planned. Claudio knelt before her and delivered his plea. I am your husband if you like of me. Leonato's daughter slowly raised her veil, revealing her face in every beautiful detail. Another hero, Claudio gasped in delight. He was amazed by this wondrous sight. The former hero, cried Don Pedro, hero that is dead. She died only while her slander lived, Leonato said. All will be explained, added the friar, delighted. But now to the chapel, so these two can be united. Pardon me, cried Benedick, but something is amiss. He surveyed the other ladies. Which one is Beatrice? I answer to that name. What is your will? Benedick inquired. Do you love me still? Why, no more than reason, she cried as she unveiled. Benedick, do not you love me? Beatrice wailed. Truly, no more than reason. Benedick's mind was a blur. Nonsense, cried Claudio. Here's a sonnet you wrote to her. Hero interrupted. Beatrice penned one too. She calls him her wildest dream come true. Our own hands against our hearts. Benedick laughed in bliss. Then they sealed their love with a tender kiss. Benedick grinned. Don Pedro, you need a new lease on life. Then he tipped his hat. Get a wife, I say, get a wife. Now Beatrice vows she wed to save Benedick's life. Benedick says he tied the knot to take pity on his wife. And though it wasn't nothing, and there was much ado, my tale ends on a cheerful note. My friends, I bow to you. And that's the end.